So a quick introduction of who we are as Tourism Economics. Yes, we are part of the wider Oxford Economics Group, and we're active essentially in all areas where tourism and economics overlap. We produce a lot of economic impact studies. We produce a lot of travel forecasts, including for 190 countries, 300 cities. So we have a good understanding of all of the data and all of the issues facing city destinations and an understanding of the specific events impacts. So we have been working to produce the event impact calculator with Destinations International for a number of years. We started doing this in 2011, initially in the US, but this has now broadened out somewhat. We do have DMOs using this, US, Canada, Mexico, Bermuda, but also in Switzerland and Krakow, and it's over 200 DMOs do use this on a regular basis to understand the importance of events to their destination. I believe the number's actually creeping up closer to 300. So it's a very quick overview of what the calculator involves. It's something that's designed to be very easy to use and very flexible. What you do is you enter some simple event parameters into the tool, and then at the press of a button, this is translated into economic impact analysis. So this shows you what are the business sales related to that event, to those visitors, what's then the impact on jobs, wages, and also taxes. And that allows you to understand the return on an investment of that event against any of the hosting costs and incentives that are faced in bringing that event to your destination. So what we have done now, working very closely with ECM, is that we have now been able to change this model, modify the underlying impact model to make it much more specific for European cities, so that it does provide localized metrics. And that is one real strength of this tool, is that we use local metrics, local data to fully understand the specific spending patterns of business travelers, visitors for these specific events to European cities, understand how that changes relative to countries. Plus, we also bring in country and city-specific ratios and multipliers to understand the wider effects of that spending. Also, then the productivity effects, the average wage costs, so we can get the localized measures of income impacts and also the productivity impacts to get to the employment effects. And also, crucially, we're able to include the country-specific tax rates, so bringing in the income taxes, corporate taxes, VAT rates specific to each country to get a much more reliable measure of tax impacts. And there is also the flexibility that's mentioned in the tool, that you can put in any city or region-specific tax rates that are also being applied to visitors. This tool does include 3 modules, which allows analysis of 13 event types. So briefly, this is different types of meetings for business travelers, sports events, and also festivals and cultural events, which will show a little more how that works in a minute. So onto the tool itself. So this is just a simple snapshot of what you're faced with on logging into the tool. I'll run through this quickly, just as a series of screenshots, then we'll jump over and have a look at the actual tool itself online. So this is, once logged in, using your username, you have the option to either go back through the navigation bar, to look at your saved calculations, to look at anything that you've done previously, or run new calculation, which is the default, which we're looking at here. And so we have this first screen where we need to put in some simple event parameters to run through and then get the impact numbers out. So here, if we're just starting to populate this, we put in just generic name for business meeting. We're looking at this as if this is a city in Germany, a large city. When you log in, you'll have access to just the locations for your country, and you have the ability to then choose between small, medium, and large cities. As we know, the events, the impacts do differ for different cities in terms of the spending patterns, but also in terms of some of the leakages and the supply chain to look at the wider impacts. Then we need to put in a start date and an end date to get the event duration. That is important for understanding the average length of stay for the event. Then we need to look at what the event type is. So we'll look at these in some detail. So first off, we have the first three. This is essentially part of the meetings module. So we can look at the business meetings or conventions or trade shows. And these are the three types of business events, meetings, where we've seen there are real differences across these types of meetings in terms of travel behavior and average spending patterns. But if you select any of these three, then the other parameters you need to put in are the same. If you were to select sports or the festivals and cultural events, then you'll get another series of options that you do need to put in. But keeping it to a business event for now, if we select business meeting, you then need to look at some other parameters such as the market segment. So whether we're selecting here that it's an association or a corporate meeting rather than a government meeting, again, key parameters that affect spending patterns. Then determine whether the meeting space is in a hotel or out of a hotel, which is another factor that matters in determining spending patterns and hosting costs. Then crucially, we need to put in the number of visitors. This is the key metric that's normally tracked by CVBs, event organisers, to understand the importance of the event. So if we can take those, we can enter them into the model, and then that really helps to translate this into some more meaningful quantification to understand what the spending impact is, what's the tax benefits, what's the employment impacts. So selected number of overnights, day visitors, since we know day visitors and overnight visitors behave differently. Also, how many of your day visitors, what roughly the percentage are from the local market who don't really have any additional spending impact. Then finally, we need to put in some information about the room rates to help refine the analysis. We can take some generic spending on hotel rooms, but if we can put in what the average room rate is for your market for this event time, that really helps to refine the spending patterns. There's also the option for putting in a room block, so a number of rooms that have been specifically allocated for this event to ensure there's the minimum impact. And finally, we need to put in the number of people there are per room. This does vary by event type and different segments, but for business meetings with the private sector, as we're selecting here, we see there's a lot of single travellers, so single occupancy, so the number of people per room on average is very low at 1.1. For other event types, we may expect this to go up to about 1.5, but this is a model default that's included. You can overwrite if you have a better sense of that. And you'll notice to the right that there are all of these question marks. These do provide help information, so if you can click on those, hover over those, you'll be able to see some more guidance as you're filling these out. So that is essentially all of the information that is really needed to run the impact costs. That's this first tab, the event parameters. You notice there are three others, so you can enter information about hosting costs, organizer spending, and taxes. These aren't essential to put in, but do help to refine the analysis. Just want to focus on one of these quickly before sharing the outputs, and that is the taxes. And you can see here that having selected a German city, that we do bring up the Germany-specific VAT rates that you can look at. So the general VAT of 19%. They have the reduced rate for hotel spending of 7%. Restaurant services all face VAT at the general 19% rate. But there is also this second option, which allows you to add any other city-specific taxes. And one that is quite prevalent, as I'm sure you all know, for in a lot of German cities, would be then the additional hotel accommodation tax. So we've entered in additional 5% tax rate for a German city tax, and you'll see that cell is showing blue to see that we have edited from the default field. There is also the option that you can put it in as a flat fee, so per room night charge. So if your city has a flat additional €2 charge rather than a percentage impact, then there is that flexibility to add that. But that is all the information that's needed to run the tool. So then you'll see at the bottom of all of these screens, there's the option to save and calculate, and that saves those parameters, calculates the impact, and then almost instantly we'll produce this output report, which includes a lot of the key information and the key outputs here at the top. Top left, you'll see there's just some of the event parameters you put in, and then top right is where the main results are shown to come out. So that shows that for the information that we've put in, there's almost 700,000 euros of direct business sales being generated for this city directly. And then when we take into account the take into account the wider business effects, so the supply chain impacts, we can see that there's over 1 million in total business sales being supported by this particular event. Below that, we can see the number of jobs that are supported at the event time, so the number of people employed in all the tourism-facing industries dealing with all of the visitors to this event. And crucially, below that, then we can see the taxes that are being generated in terms of the local taxes, and then what the tax return on investment will be from that, any hosting costs that are put in. Below that, then we have some more detail on some of the direct business sales. We can see who's generating these sales, whether it's the attendees, whether it's the organisers, if it's the exhibitors having an impact. For a business meeting, we don't have exhibitors, so that's a 0. But if it's a convention, a trade show, there would be large exhibitor impacts that will be counted. For the sports and festivals, we'd also want to count in some media or sponsors impacts within this part of the outputs and within the model. And we can also see how the sales break out by different sector, so how much of this spending is on lodging versus food and beverage versus other aspects such as retail or recreation. For a business event, this is a standard pattern. The vast majority of the spending is on lodging and food and beverage. There's a lot of the visitors come in, stay for a short time, spend a lot of money in their hotels and restaurants, but don't really travel beyond the convention center or the hotel meeting space. For some of the sports events, the festivals, we do see much more diverse sales across all the different sectors. Then we turn to the second page of the output report. We can see some more detail for these things. I won't run through all of the numbers in any detail, as you may be thankful for, but we can see here that at the top just shows some of the sales effects as well, broken out for the direct and the total. Also then how the jobs break out for that, and crucially how all of the taxes are broken down for all of the different tax rates, whether they're direct in the wider economy, and a wealth of information that you can then take to your partners, your stakeholders, any of the key policymakers to show that the real benefits that are generated from hosting any of the events. These outputs, so the initial output is this report, but there is quite a lot of flexibility in how you can look at this. So when you're looking at the reports, you may notice this icon at the top. That does allow you to then, rather than just view it on the screen or print it, save it into Word, PDF, or Excel format. So help you to manipulate it, share it with others, do any calculations. But there is also, you can see towards the bottom of the screen, if you click on through the navigation bar, the Saved Calculations part, you can get down and you can see listed all of the different impacts that you have run or for all the different events. You can tick the ones that you are interested in the left-hand bar there, And then you can save these down as a batch download into Excel. You can look at all of the different impacts together, some across a number of impacts, to see the total impact for a series of events by a month, a quarter, or for a year. And crucially, we do allow API access to this, so you can link all of this system to your own CRM event calendars. And this is what a lot of the current users already do, rather than going through the manual interface. Is link use technological solutions to link the current databases to the system to produce batch calculations to look at what the event impacts are for a whole.